Think you're brave? Adventure Science Center wants to put you to the test. Waylate Playdate Camp Fear at Adventure Science Center is a 21 and up night out where you'll face your phobias and maybe discover a few new ones. Hold hissing cockroaches, take on 300,000 volts at the Van de Graaff generator, catch live comedy, and see a planetarium show scored by a string quartet. Plus, there'll be food trucks and a full bar to help calm your nerves. Waylate Playdate Camp Fear, August 7th at Adventure Science Center. Tickets at adventuresci.org. Today on CityCast Nashville, what the heck is going on at BNA? From airport board drama to new concourses, parking garages, lounges, rideshare pickups, and runways, oh my. Luckily, Adam Sitchko, senior reporter at the Nashville Business Journal, is here to help make sense of it all. It's Monday, July 27th. I'm Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Hey y'all, real quick before we get into today's episode about BNA, I've got to pause and ask you very quickly to fill out our annual listener survey. That's right, folks. It's a new year and we need that new sweet, sweet data. So if you would, head on over to citycast.fm/survey and take that survey now. It only takes 7 minutes. We timed ourselves. That's as quickly as we can do it. And we know you can too. So go ahead, take it today. And when you do, you'll be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and CityCast Nashville swag. So please, it really does help us out if you take this survey today. Again, go to citycast.fm/survey. Now, on with the show. Adam, we are so excited you're here because there is too much going on at the airport right now. And we got to hold hands and we got to talk through it together.
All the things.
All the things. It's wild. But let's start with a very easy question. When you fly out of BNA, what is your favorite terminal and why?
I wish I actually flew out of there more than I get to. I feel like I'm drawn to the new. And so if you walk down Concourse D all the way to the end, they've opened this new part that I think has some really great public art. There's a people mover to let your kids burn off some energy. They have an outdoor terrace, which I imagine like if you're on a layover is really nice. Go get some fresh air and watch some planes come and go. So that would be my vote.
Me too, Adam. I like the Puckets over there.
A classic.
You get one biscuit and it's the cheapest thing in the airport. I think we should pose that exact same question about which is their favorite terminal to everybody on our 2 airport boards. That's right, listeners. We have 2. Adam, before we get into why we have 2 airport boards, can you just explain to us what one airport board is supposed to do for Nashville?
The airport board is in charge of several really important things for the direction the airport heads in the future. Those board members decide who serves as the CEO of the airport authority and decides what that person is paid. They take votes on almost all of the contracts that the airport authority issues, which I'm sure as we're going to get into with all of the construction and expansion going on has been quite a lot of work that they've had to weigh in on. And they are also in charge of, shaping the long-term vision for the airport. How is it going to grow? Where is it going to grow? What kinds of routes and flights are we trying to attract? It's really a central part of our region's rapidly growing economy. And they are, month in and month out, involved in lots of conversations on where that goes next.
Okay, so now why do we have 2?
Yeah, how long do we have for this? Yeah.
It's a 20-minute podcast.
Okay, well, we have 2 because state lawmakers passed a law this spring that removed or vacated the existing board of the Metro Nashville Airport Authority and installed a different board that has more seats, and most of those seats are filled by state appointees. Prior to this, Metro government controlled who sat in every board seat. The mayor appointed people who were confirmed by vote at Metro Council. And that had been the pattern since the airport authority was created in 1970. And so now, however, we have a law on the books that took effect July 1st. So the all Metro cast has been taken out of their seats. And in their place, you've got a board of 9 people, 6 are state appointees, and all of those seats have been filled. The other 3 seats under the state law go to Metro to be filled, but as you might suspect, Metro has not taken any steps to fill those board seats right now.
Which one is real?
Yeah, that's what everyone's asking judges. They're asking judges in Tennessee. They're asking judges in the District of Columbia to weigh in on that. And that's what Metro and the state are currently litigating on multiple fronts right now. Metro argues that the state board is unconstitutional, illegitimate, invalid. There's several terms you could plug in there. As of the moment you and I are talking, no one in court and no federal agency has stepped in at this point to give any kind of ruling or guidance or decision on which board, has authority. And so as of now, there is an active state law on the books, and this state board is having meetings and taking votes and making decisions. And that's going to continue until someone else intervenes.
What's the argument for maintaining local control over the airport?
I would say Metro's argument rests on a couple of ideas. One is that when the airport authority was created in 1970, it was created because the state had passed a law that allowed municipalities to create airport authorities. Under the language of the law, these authorities would be agencies and instrumentalities of those local governments. And so that is the way the Metro Nashville Airport Authority was created. That's the way it has operated ever since. That authority owns and operates BNA and John Tune in West Nashville. And it has had an all Metro Board of Commissioners, except for right now, and then except for 2023, when state lawmakers tried to make this change for the first time and then lost a couple of rounds of court battles. But they're still fighting. But this law they passed this year to me is kind of a signal that they're taking a different tack at trying to get to the same result, which is having a board where they have the majority of seats at Nashville International Airport.
Yes, the state loves us here in Nashville. So why do you think they're so eager to have control over it, and what's their motivation behind it?
They've made a couple of arguments. One is this airport has grown so much that it has, a true regional impact, and that the state should have a voice because there's a broader regional impact, which I think for a number of years now, that's really been the case with BNA as far as that regional impact. Lawmakers also make an economic argument. The state in the last number of years has increased the amount of aid that it gives, not just to BNA, but to other airport authorities in Tennessee. The Metro Airport Authority this year is receiving $66 million from the state. The airport authority does not receive any taxpayer money or grants from Metro government. It generates money on its own through parking, concessions, fees that airlines pay, fees that you pay when you rent a car, or fees that you pay when you get picked up or dropped off in a rideshare. Like all those things, plus state grants, plus federal grants, but there are not Metro grants. And so state lawmakers also point to that as an argument. There's also the fact that this all bubbled up in one of the rounds of political battles between Metro and the state. So there is a little bit of, because they can. This is one of a number of areas where the state has tried to assert itself more forcefully in what had traditionally been a Metro thing. Those political tensions are still very much why this is an active and ongoing fight.
So if they did take over, how could their control change the experience for travelers?
That's a great question. I don't know how much travelers would really detect this. The airport is such an important piece of the region's economy that Metro historically has been vested in having smart, capable people serve on that board. It's been one of the most prestigious boards in all of Metro government. And I would similarly, to me, the state also has a vested interest in making sure that airport continues to be well run and continues to grow. And so how much do travelers go into Puckett's notice? How much do the employees, who work at those restaurants and retail stores notice? I don't know, but we also are still pretty new in this territory. This law has only been in effect for a few weeks. Remains to be seen how it plays out from here. So maybe if you were talking to me in a year, that picture looks a little bit different than it does right now.
Okay, well, let's dive into what is changing the airport for travelers, and that's the never ending construction. First up, the roads. We haven't seen a traffic apocalypse in a while. So, are they getting better?
What I can tell you about the roads is that the airport officials have long known that that is a choke point, and it involves conversations with the state, even on some level, the federal government as well. But, the state has been doing things on I-40 with Donaldson Pike to try to make traffic flow in and out better. The airport right now is taking it has like a 1 mile internal loop, terminal drive. They're expanding that from 1 mile to 2 miles. They're making it 2 or 3 times wider, all in the hopes of A, improving the current traffic flow in and out, but then B, knowing the growth targets that they expect to reach and how many more millions of people will be coming through there beyond the continually record-setting numbers of passengers that we already see. They're trying to catch up to some of that growth that even eclipsed what they were trying to forecast, but then also get ahead of what they think are the next waves of that.
Well, the Super Bowl is coming.
Yeah, not the least. That's one of the loudest ticking clocks in the city right now.
I know, at any moment you could just hear it ticking. Well, let's talk about rideshare areas. There's a weird drop-off situation these days. And then also when you're trying to get out of the airport, is it still a cluster? I want to use a bad word there. Is it just still a cluster?
I think it's another area where they continue to keep their eyes ever more closely on it. The cell lot has moved a couple of times. Now it's out on Murfreesboro Pike.
Don't even get me started about that.
They've rejiggered the rideshare pickup drop-off area a couple of times. Waymo is now testing some of its driverless robo-taxi pickups and drop-offs out there. So, they already see more than 4 million Uber and Lyft pickup or drop-offs a year. And that, again, with the way the region is growing, with the big events in town, those numbers are only going to continue to go up.
What about, are there any signs of maybe the Music City Loop tunnel over there?
There are not any signs at the airport yet, but they are underway digging right now, starting at their downtown site and progressing their way out to the airport. That's the first route they want to build. They have not said exactly when they think those tunneling machines are going to reach the airport. I'm sure there are going to be situations where they run into something they didn't quite expect was there, and then they have to pause and figure out how to adjust what they do next.
So you don't want to put any money right now on a fall of 2026 first phase completion date?
Yeah, I stay out of things like polymarketing, Kelsey, for exactly these kinds of reasons. Yeah.
Same. All right, well, let's talk about the parking lots, parking garages galore. What's happening? What's opening?
On July 1st, they closed Lot A, which was the closest surface lot to the terminal. And they closed that because they're going to build a parking garage with more than 7,000 spaces in it, some of which will be for passengers, some of which will become the new home for all the rental car companies that are there today. But as a result, that parking lot had, more than 1,000 spaces in it. So they've been expanding Lot B a little bit to try to account for that. There's still Lot C. Both of those you ride on shuttles to get into the terminal. It's one of many examples where it's just an ever-changing situation out there.
Okay, let's get into the concourses and lounges. The A gates are gone now. Was that the last place we saw the old BNA carpet?
Yes. I think it is actually gone.
R.I.P.
There's at least, I'm sure, one Instagram account where we can get the official word on this. That carpet had a cult following. Yeah. They were selling it as doormats and...
my friend has it as their kitchen mat.
Fantastic.
When will that new terminal open?
So Concourse A is scheduled to open in July of 2028. It only had 6 gates before. It'll have 16 when it opens. And so that'll take the airport from 54 gates all the way up to 70 gates, which, they think will be good through the mid to late 2030s. They just finished a fiscal year where they had 26.7 million passengers come through, which was a nearly 8% increase in 1 year. Once Concourse A opens, they believe that'll allow them to handle up to 40 million passengers a year in the airport.
Okay, well, let's talk about the lounges. If folks can afford them, what's the status on them?
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you can. I cannot, but
I've been to one lounge. My friend got me into the Delta Lounge in Atlanta, and I had 3 glasses of wine as quickly as possible and then slept on the plane. It was amazing. But what's the status here in Nashville?
so there's a few lounge storylines that are playing out. So American Airlines has one now, and when the new Concourse A opens, they're going to build a bigger version of it in Concourse A. Southwest Airlines is revamping a lot of its business model, and they are the dominant, by far the biggest airline at BNA. They are spending tens of millions of dollars on their own airport lounge in the middle of the terminal. And then the airport authority also is issuing bids to credit card companies to see if they want, one of them wants to compete to open a lounge.
Is Southwest a hub here in Nashville? I know Delta is in Atlanta.
I would argue that effectively it is. Southwest opened a crew base in Nashville 2 or 3 years ago, which means that a lot of its pilots and flight attendants can use it as their home base. I think they account for 53 or 54% of all the passengers who come through the airport. And, it's more than double the next biggest airline at BNA. Again, like they were one of the first places they're building a lounge.
You think they'll just have bags of pretzels everywhere?
I mean, if you're having 3 glasses of wine, yes, I would say
so.
You should be having some pretzels to go along with that. And they're also, if you look in context of Southwest, all the destinations they serve, Nashville just continues to shoot up the charts as far as the number of daily departures, total number of seats. We are an increasingly important market to Southwest. A lot of other big airports around the country, their growth has sort of, leveled off or been even declined a little bit in the last year or two. And then, meanwhile, as we just talked about, Nashville continues to reel off annual records for the number of passengers coming through.
Well, let's talk quickly about runways. Are we still expanding those, and how will those impact people who live near the airport?
We are still expanding them. The U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy made a visit to BNA at the end of June, and runways were a huge talking point, partly because some of them need to be upgraded or redone, and partly because there's already one runway that crosses Murfreesboro, which if you're driving on Murfreesboro is where you go under that tunnel or through that tunnel under the runway.
Planes above you. It's terrifying.
And a big old plane above you. Well, the airport wants to do that again with another runway and take a second runway across Murfreesboro Road. And the length of that runway is intended to be long enough for the airport to be able to recruit nonstop routes to Asia.
Yes, please.
That is something that airport officials have been chipping away at for years. Top state officials definitely want to see that happen. Some of that $66 million that was included for BNA in the latest state budget is for, design and other early work to extend that runway. But that one runway extension project could be about $1 billion. And so, the airport is definitely counting on the federal government to step up to the plate with some money. They're definitely counting on the state government to step up to the plate with some money. And then there's going to be another piece of that pie where the airport authority itself is going to have to figure out whether it's the airlines helping pay for that or just some borrowing that they might do. And, it's not that the planes have gotten louder. It's just there's a lot more of them flying in and out of BNA than there were 5 or 10 years ago. So I have no doubt the neighbors in that immediate area absolutely notice a difference.
I'm glad you mentioned the $1 billion for the runway, but like the central core renovation, are we on the hook for that?
They added that into the budget for, this is where the airport CEO is going to ping me and say, you called it the wrong name. I think New Horizon 2 is what they added it into. They have been doing rounds of expansion going back to the mid-2010s that are supposed to run through 2029 or 2030. And if you add that all up, it's well over $4 billion that they're going to spend expanding and growing the airport. So they added that into the mix. And I think they're still making a couple of decisions on, they might tweak a couple other pieces of what they had intended on to make sure that gets funded. But, they've borrowed a lot of money for that work, and that gets paid back through, all those revenue sources that we've already talked about.
When all this is said and done, do you think our airport will still feel like Nashville?
That's a great question. I know it's a priority for them, having been in enough of these board meetings where they do they go to a great extent to try to keep that Nashville imprint and feel on the airport. Now, I think you and I would answer that question differently than a tourist who's coming in, for a week-long visit, right? I mean, there's live music, playing at a number of those restaurants in the airport, which is a very Nashville thing. But those tourists have no idea that there used to be this funky carpet that had a cult following that now is gone. And so or those tourists don't know, they don't remember what they paid for parking at the airport 5 or 10 years ago, or they don't remember that feeling of ease of access that gets constrained just when you have the volume of activity that you have going on there.
Right. Free parking for the first 30 minutes, and then you can run over and pick up whoever and run back and not have to pay anything. I mean, what a beautiful time. Oh, well. This episode will air on July 27th, the day a judge is supposed to rule on which airport board reigns supreme. So, Adam, give us your best guess on what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'll go back to that earlier comment about not being on Kalshi or Polymarket for these kinds of reasons. The cliche is that the wheels of justice turn slowly. And, I think there's a not zero chance that July 27th comes and goes and we may not have more clarity on what exactly the lay of the land is. The FAA has suggested in court filings that it may never weigh in on this, or that if it does, there's no set date when they have to say something by, is part of their argument. So a lot of that is still in TBD territory that changes by the week.
Wow, sounds like a really cool reality show that everyone should tune in and see who reigns supreme. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. This was very educational, and I can't wait to see you at the airport. We can share a biscuit if you want.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. Early voting is open now through August 1st for the August 6th state and federal primary election and municipal general. Go vote! And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our CityCast Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!